Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I am coming at you with another wargaming and miniature video. In this video, I'm going to review some Sarissa MDF buildings that I plan to use in my 15 millimeter war games coming up. And I want to not only review them, but kind of explain my thought process as well as my disappointments. So let me just get started, and we're not going to start with this one. I actually want to finish with this one. I just think it's a very nice looking model. We're gonna review this one last. Okay, this model right here is a 25 millimeter model from Sarissa. It's a great model for skirmish wargaming. It's actually an American hovel, American house with a porch. But I got it out mainly so that I could show you or compare some of these 15 millimeter models to this 25 millimeter model that I've got here, and kind of show you some size comparisons. Now I also have 15 millimeter World War II figure. I've got a 20 millimeter 1/72nd scale. I think this is a Revell US soldier. He's 20 millimeter. Okay, and you can kind of, he's not painted or anything, but you could see the scale increase there. And then I also have the 25/28 millimeter offensive miniature American paratrooper that I use for my bolt action games. Okay, so you can kind of see the size. Now this 25 millimeter bolt action figure works pretty good for it's kind of hard to see. Okay, for the windows, right? You can see that works great. It's a great building, good sized building. You're looking at about 100 millimeters long this way. The detachable roof. Whenever you're playing a skirmish level game, it's good to have detachable roofs because you can always put your individual soldiers on the inside. Okay, now let me go ahead and put these off to the side because I'm going to use those to show you how they compare to these other buildings that I'm going to bring out and show you. Okay, now first I'm going to bring out their American War of Independence, or early colonial era buildings, and they're not finished obviously, but here's a good two-story, and all the remainder of these buildings are 15 millimeter buildings. So of course they're not going to be this big, right? Obviously. This is a two-story building that's still not as tall as that building. But and you can usually compare doorways and things like that to kind of get a scale difference. I'm going to give you windows. Maybe I can put that on this side. I don't know. And then you can kind of see that's a good discrepancy in scale. And then when it's supposed to be a 15 millimeter building, I put a 15 millimeter soldier in front of that door / windows. It looks good. Now, these are American War of Independence buildings. Usually, not always, but usually you don't play a skirmish level game in this era. Sometimes you can, but since I don't need to be able to remove the roof. I don't need to be able to see out of the windows. So once I get this all fully painted and everything, I can just put my battalions outside the building, to represent that they are inside. I will not be using this with my World War II gaming because it's an American building. Okay, but I'm just giving you kind of a size comparison. I think that's a great size for those figures. Okay, let's go with a single story building. Single story American War of Independence building. Got a window in the back, got your fireplace, you got your doors, you got your single floor. Same situation. It's looking good. All right. And then we go with my final building from this era, and that's a church, right? I got the final building that I want to show you. This is a church with a bell tower. So there's no bell in there, obviously, but this looks really good. Now, if you wanted to, you could not put, this is a 2-layer building. There's actually 2 layers of MDF. The inner layer has the windows and the outer layer has the wood. You could leave the inner layer out and those windows would be open so you could see in and out of the church. Also, you could leave this roof or this roof off, or not glued down. This one just happens to be glued down, and then you would be able to get inside with troops if you wanted to do it that way. That's completely up to you. So I think this is a good size for 15mm wargaming. I think that's great. That door might actually be just a little short. Okay, so I think that looks really, really good. It's the same size as those. Okay. Now we're going to break into my what Sarissa calls World War Europe, which is they have 3 scales that they sell on their website: 15, 20, and 28mm. This would be one of their 28mm figs or model kits, but this is not World War Europe. This is just North American. Okay, so World War Europe. Let me bring out a single building. Now remember, this is supposed to be 15mm. If I was to compare it to this other single-story building, you can see there is quite a bit of discrepancy. Now, does that mean European buildings are bigger than American buildings? They might be. I mean, historically, they might actually be bigger. Did they make them bigger so that I could remove roofs? The roofs have these trestles where you can put them separately, and then you could put your troops inside, you know, and then you could put your roof back on. No one will ever know you're in there, you know. I think this is still a really good scale. I like the fact that it's just a little bit bigger. I like the fact that this is smaller because this is usually going to be in a multi-base type battle. So it's going to have like battalions on a base, where World War II games are usually played in a much smaller scale, like maybe like in this scale, I'm going to be playing one figure is 1 man, but some played, you know, one figure is 20 men, some figures are 15, you know, like Command Decision, you got 2 figs per platoon, so you're looking at maybe 2 figs representing 30 guys, where in this case it is a 1-to-1. So I like it being just a little bit more realistic to scale, as opposed to I like this being smaller. Okay, so far so good, right? I like this build. Okay, so then we go into a little bit larger. This is their shop building. It's a 2-story shop. It gives you a plate, so if you want to put like a sign like Cafe Gondre, or maybe the donut shop, or whatever you want to put on there, bagels, you got 2 stories. So you got your ground floor, and so you could put your troops in there like that, or I can take the roof off and have a second floor, right? So you got your guys on the first and second floor. That looks really good. I like it. It's not any bigger. It's not any bigger footprint than this building. Right, so these 2 buildings actually have the same footprint on the ground. You know, if you were to kind of look at that or look at that, they're the same length, and they're the same width. So this just happens to have a second floor. So far, so good. I like the shop. I'm getting ready to have the shoe drop here in just a minute. I like that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove this because it's going to be in the way. But I just wanted to show you a 28 millimeter building so that you could kind of get an idea for the scale. Now remember, we are shooting for 15 millimeter. All right, so then I scaled it up just a little bit. This is a 15 millimeter coach house, or like your coach would drive in there and unload its passengers. This could be an inn, and of course it would have like Comfort Inn or Days Inn, you know, on your sign. And this roof also comes off. Okay, it hasn't come off today, but yeah, it comes off. You've got a couple of different rooms upstairs, so you could put like a squad on this side, you could put a squad on this side. So far so good. It's basically a double footprint to your standard single house, right? So you're looking at a double footprint. So it's like these two buildings put together. Also, if you wanted to do row houses, you can, because they all have kind of like the same dimensions when it comes to the width and the frontage. And a lot of the walls don't have any windows on them, so that you could just put them side by side. This one just happens to have a window on the end. This is more, but you could, if you wanted to, include it with row houses. But from what I can tell, most row houses were 2 or 3 stories. So this would actually be best used maybe as a single building on the battlefield out somewhere. Okay, so, and this has got 2 floors as well. Okay, now it's got the center piece here, but it has this extra wall to give yourself a doorway, a coat room, or whatever you want to call it right there. But there is enough room in here to put a squad in there if you wanted to. They'll actually come right on out, or you could put one on this side. So you could have like 4 squads in this one, no problem, right? All right. And the way they have these little grooves, pockets, and these little nubs on here, they should go together and stack pretty good, right? Okay. Okay, so far we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from all these, and I'm going to continue with my positive feedback until the end. All right. There we go. I picked up a chateau. This one I'm starting to worry about. It is a beautiful model. The doors are about the same height and width. It's maybe a double door, a little bit wider. On these doors, they come cut. Not these. These are actually paper doors that are glued on the inside of your building to give the impression of a door. You can leave those out, or you could even cut the paper and make the door open inward, or whatever you want to do with that. On one of these, oh, it was the church. Yeah, never mind. On the church, what I did was I actually busted the wood and bent it out and glued it like half open. But you can do that because these actually have I don't know if you can see that, but the doors are cut and you could break them open if you wanted to. Maybe cut them with an X-Acto knife if you don't want to break them. Okay. This is a great model. I love this model. It went together real easy. It only took me one night to put it together. But it's starting to show a little bit of size on my battlefield. And I don't like having huge models of buildings on a battlefield, but I think I need to just accept it because I am playing a skirmish level game and not a mass combat game. This size building would not be acceptable with my Napoleonics or my American War of Independence because those buildings represent town sectors and not individual buildings. You don't put figures inside. You usually put them outside, maybe on a tile or courtyard, or just butt them up to the edge of the building, depending on how you do your game. But on this one, you have the front stairs. You also have these back stairs. You'll notice that they go up about 4 steps so that when you look inside, there's actually a raised floor. When I put this model together, I didn't realize that. And then I was like, where did this extra floor come from? Right? And then I realized it's a raised floor. There's, I don't know if you can see those little bricks right there, but that's the inner floor, how much it's elevated, about 2 bricks. And so you could walk up and then you'll have a flat floor when you go inside. You could easily put 2 squads in there. You might even put 3 if you do it that way. And then you could go with a second floor. Now, it'll only go on one way. You cannot put it on like this. And the reason why that is because this door frame has a piece that sticks up and it's off center. And this door frame has a piece that sticks up and it is centered. And on here, you have a centered and an off-centered. So the off-centered goes with the off-centered and the centered goes with the centered. And that's fine because what that does is it puts the majority of your windows on the front and a couple of windows back here, there, and there. Okay, so you could put another couple of squads up there. I mean, you could really stack this building, right? And then you've got it's not the roof. This is the attic, right? And so you could even put a guy maybe down inside there in the attic. You certainly could. Not many guys, maybe a sniper, maybe a spotter team. You could definitely put them up in the attic. There's no window on this side, but there's windows on these 3 sides. And these could be put on backwards like this, but it's not made to go like that, obviously. All the windows should be in the front. This being the front door. And then finally, if you want, you can have a roof. And I don't know. Nope, that guy doesn't go up there. But you could do something like that. Or you can use one of those smaller bases, you know, the small base or individually based guys. Some of my guys are individually based on 15 millimeter. Some are on 20. Some are on multi-bases like this. Some are on the smaller multi-bases, which I don't have any easily accessible. So this is a good sized building. I mean, a larger good sized building, right? So we're going to slide this off to the side. This would not be a row house. This could be considered like any kind. I would put this in a village, maybe as the guest house, maybe as the like a hotel inn kind of thing, or I would use it as the government house. I can't remember what that's called. But there is a name for it, and Hauptmann's house. It depends on where you're at. But I would make this. This could be the cafe. It could be anything, really. But it's a beautiful looking model. I really, really, really enjoyed putting that together. Yeah. Okay. So we already know that our World War II buildings are much bigger than our American War of Independence buildings. We already know that. And I'm gonna take this off. going to take this one off. I'm going to leave this, they call it a chateau, right? I'm going to leave the chateau out here, and I'm going to leave the church, the American War of Independence Church, and I'm just going to leave this standard house out here to kind of, and the reason why I brought these 25 millimeter figures and this 20 millimeter figure out is to kind of show you what I'm about to show you. I bought a church for World War II. I knew I needed to, mainly for the Lafier Bridge scenario that I'm making, but I wanted a World War II church that I could remove the roof, I could get inside, I can move around, and I wanted it to be 15 millimeter, right? I was anticipating, imagine this being a single-story American War of Independence, and this being a church American War of Independence, and this being a single-story World War II. I was expecting this church to maybe be about that big, you know, maybe 1.5 times this size. This one's a little bit less than one. It's about 1.5 size, approximately. So what did I get? Do I have to move my camera back to see the size of this building? Okay. Well, before we go any further, this steeple, bell tower, whatever you want to call it, you can take the roof off. Okay, the roof is attached to the upper part of the tower. You're not actually taking the roof off. You're taking off the entire upper half of the roof, and luckily it just fits right over these windows because they've got the gables or whatever you call those. Okay, so that comes off. Great. You could put a figure up here, and he could be the sniper or spotter or whatever, you know. This building is so enormous compared to like this, which was an enormous building. This building is just dominant, right? Okay. It's not even close to being 1.5 times this. It's like 2.5 times that, right? Lengthwise. And then it's like at least, I don't know, at least twice as wide. Okay. So this building, I think, in my opinion, is way too big. I'm not sure, but I think it's way too big. I'm comparing it to other buildings like that. Okay, let me get this single. Let's push this back so we can get most of it in camera. Okay. Good sized building. Pretty good. Is that just too big or is it accurate? I don't know. So this also comes off. Okay, that's very important for me because I wanted a church at Lafier Bridge that did not have a bell tower or no gable, no like sniper perch or spotter tower or anything. I wanted it to be a church with no steeple. Okay, so even looking at that, right? Let me get these figures out of the way. Is that a 15 millimeter church? I don't know. It seems like it's a little bit big for that. Okay, so let's keep turning. Let's turn it this way. So there's the doorway, right? That's a tall door for a 15 millimeter figure, wouldn't you say? I think so. Yeah. Okay. So I double checked to make sure I didn't order the 28 millimeter one because I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I ordered a 28 millimeter church. And this is exactly the size I would expect a 28 millimeter church to be. So I said, okay, what about a 28 millimeter figure? Would that look right? No, he looks like he's too tall for that door. Okay, let's check the windows. He might be okay. He might be okay for the windows. That's actually okay. And the front might be just a little short. Maybe just a little short, but I think it's still okay for 28 millimeter. But then I thought to myself, this is a 15 millimeter model. They make a 20 millimeter model and they make a 28 millimeter model. So I compared the product numbers that were actually on the MDF with what it's advertised on the website, and it was the 15 millimeter model. They did send me the 15 millimeter model. I looked at the measurements that are displayed on the website because they make this exact same model in 3 sizes. So I looked at the measurements, and under the description of the 15 millimeter model, it has these measurements. And then on the 20 millimeter model, it's a little bit bigger. And on the 28 millimeter model, it's even bigger. So a 28 millimeter model of this church would be gigantic. Okay. Moving on. We're going to continue. You can actually take the roofs off both sides. Right? That's great. And you can take the roof off of the lengthwise. And then you'll have like a large open area on the inside. So, taking a 15 millimeter model and putting it on the inside next to a window just to kind of look to see how it would look. All I see are heads. Right? That doesn't look right to me. I would think it would like they would be a little bit taller. When I put this 28 millimeter model in there, I'm thinking if this is a 2 scale church, I think he's way too big, right? Because if there was pews in there or there was a pulpit or whatever, he would be way too big, right? In my opinion. So I don't think this is a 28 millimeter church. It could be used on a battlefield as a 28 millimeter church, but I don't think so. So that's why I grabbed this 20 millimeter model, because I wanted to compare and see if this would be more appropriate for a 20 millimeter church. Size of the doorway looks good. Let's do it this way. He's got his Thompson sticking out the window. I think that's a good height for a window. And then, I'm going to lay him down just so you can kind of see the scale. Just visualizing an actual church on the inside with the pews and the pulpit and everything, he might actually be a little bit big for that. These windows are just way too tall, or high, I should say. This church is like 3 stories tall, comparing it to this guy. I don't know if I want to put this on my Lafayette, because all I needed was just like a village church. This one seems like it's for a major city or a town or something. This seems like a cathedral, not a village church as it's advertised. It just feels like it's way too big. Tell me what you think. I've looked around at other churches. Either they're made of resin or something like that, and they don't open, so you can't get in them, or they come with a steeple, or I just couldn't find a good compromise. 15 millimeter? I don't know. It's just it just seems like it's way too big for a 15 millimeter church. And this one's going to be too, I mean, if I have to, I'm going to use this bad boy at Lafayette, unless I can find a comparable church. Maybe, and if I order the 20 millimeter one, it's going to be bigger. And if I order the 28 millimeter one, it's going to be even bigger. Now, they do make a shrine or some other kind of church, but I'm afraid of the appearance. It looks more Russian or whatever, and I don't think I want that. So, do you agree with me that this is too big for 15 millimeters, or do you think this is more of a 20 or a 28 millimeter battlefield style church? And or do you know where I could find a village church? It doesn't have to be a T. It could be a solid piece like this. Actually, I would prefer a single piece like this with removable roofs so that I could put a squad inside and no steeple. It can be even bigger than this. I don't mind it being bigger. I don't mind it being like this big. I don't even mind it being that big. I think that's a good size for a church. Just not that. That's just way too big. All right, hopefully that helps you out understanding the Sarissa scale when it comes to their World War II 15 millimeter buildings and their churches and their stables, where I guess it's a coaching inn, and their shop. And if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe and come back. I do a lot of videos pertaining to wargaming models and miniatures, and I update everybody on my progress of my current projects. And I will see you in my next video.